So you want to get rich. When I was a kid, I spent so much time reading because I wanted to discover the secrets of successful people so that I could become successful myself. One of the best ways to learn from successful people is simply to read their books. However, this takes a lot of time. On average, it will take 8.3 hours to read a 300-page book. I read more than 50 books on money, and I came up with 9 key lessons that I am applying in my business, and I truly believe that if you apply the elements that I'm going to share with you in the following 9 lessons, your business is going to grow substantially. It will be unlike anything else you've ever experienced before. The first lesson that I learned very early on, and probably one of the most important lessons in business or to learn in general if you want to build great wealth, is the importance of leverage. I can guarantee without a shadow of a doubt that every single successful person has a deep and thorough understanding of what leverage is, and they also apply it in their business. So as you can see, there are 3 main forms of leverage. You can either leverage other people's capital. So for instance, this is exactly what people do when they take out a loan in order to acquire real estate properties, to increase their income and their net worth. Or to give you another example, the way that the stock market works is by allowing companies to leverage other people's capital, in this case the capital of investors, and with the money that they receive they can fuel the growth and development of their companies. Then the other thing that you can leverage is other people's time, because you can't do everything yourself. We all have the same 24 hours in the day, and at some point if you want to achieve more, to grow your business, you will need the help of other people. And so leveraging other people's time, this is typically what every company in the world does by hiring employees or freelancers or contractors. And then the third way to use leverage is to use tools, automations or softwares. And to give you a few examples of what leverage would look like in action, a teacher teaching a student on a one-on-one setting, there isn't much leverage here. Now if the teacher has a class of 30 students at a time, this is a higher form of leverage. And if the professor decides to create an online training material like an online course or an ebook, then that's the ultimate form of leverage, because when the course or the ebook is created, every student can watch it or read it, but it doesn't mean that the teacher is going to have more work to do. Leverage also allows you to experience what we call exponential growth. And as you can see on this graph, linear growth means that there's a constant rate of growth. However, when it comes to exponential growth, as you can see, things are very slow at first, like it can be frustrating, but then things take off seemingly out of nowhere. That's typically what happens with YouTube. To give you an example, you start off by uploading lots of content and barely anybody sees it. In the first year, you barely get any views. Then one day, one of your videos blows up, and it blows up your entire channel as a result. And now you start to attract more viewers, you start to build a community, an audience. And that's exactly why oftentimes people can be fooled into believing that there is such a thing as an overnight success, because especially on social media, they're gonna see somebody or a business blow up all of a sudden. Lesson number 2 is to learn the vital importance of social skills in business. Business is all about people, so the better you understand human psychology, what compels people to act, why they want the things that they want, what makes them tick, the more successful your company is going to be. Now in business, we typically have B2B and B2C. B2B means businesses providing services or products to other businesses, and B2C simply means businesses providing products or services to everyday consumers, everyday people. However, in reality, it's not a business that provides a product or a service to people or to a business. It's people providing products and services to people, because who runs the business? Well, people. So if you don't understand what people want and why they want the things that they want, and also why they don't want certain things, it's going to be very difficult to build a profitable business. And also, you can't do everything on your own, so you're going to need to have a team. You will need to hire employees, freelancers, contractors, or a combination of the 3. And you can't hire, train, and manage employees if you have no idea how to properly communicate with them, if you have very poor social skills. So that is why you need to master the arts of social skills if you really want to make it to the top in the business world. Now, the most popular book when it comes to improving your social skills, it's called How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. It's definitely a good read, and I recommend it to you if you want to improve your social skills, because it will give you a lot of tips. So if you haven't already, I would definitely recommend that you add it to your reading list. Lesson number 3 is that there is no need to go to business school or to get an expensive MBA or a fancy degree if you want to succeed in business. Now, master's degrees, they cost anywhere from $30,000 up to $120,000, and that's a huge sum of money to spend on a degree that will barely teach you anything about business. So instead of going down that route and spending like a couple $100,000, getting in debt really, I recommend that you read the book called The Personal MBA. You'll get your business education for $17.99 instead of over $100,000. And in the book, the author gives some examples of studies that have shown that having an MBA, it does not necessarily increase your salary long term or your likelihood of success. The truth is that fancy universities often take credit for the success of their students, when in reality, they simply accept the brightest students who would have succeeded with or without the MBA anyway. Again, if you really want to go in depth on this topic, I really invite you to read the book called The Personal MBA. Lesson number 4, you need to move fast. You have to understand that business is a ruthlessly competitive world. Just like in basketball or in any other sport, getting to the top, it's very difficult to begin with, but staying at the top year after year, it's even harder. You have to constantly innovate and to always make sure that you stay at the top of your game, because you've got to realize that there's another guy at the bottom of the food chain chain, and he's hungry for more. He's hungry for power and for success and for wealth, and he will do whatever the heck it takes to get to the top. So if you lose your drive, you lose your hunger, you become complacent, you will get wiped out really quickly, believe me. Like, I know that for some people, it takes them months to create a simple webinar or a simple video sales letter. Let me tell you that this is a recipe for failure and for bankruptcy. In business, unlike most people think, you don't necessarily need to reinvent the wheel. However, you do need to move with speed. And especially with the internet and with social media today, the world is constantly evolving at a faster pace than ever. Which is why you can't really write a book about technical things anymore, because it's gonna be outdated very quickly. In the software industry, they came up with the concept of the MVP, meaning minimum viable product. So what happened is that at some point in the industry, things got really messy. And by messy, what I really mean is that developers were adding all of those fancy, complicated, and unnecessary features to their softwares. And because of that, consumers would just get confused and their sales would plummet down. So a few people came up with the concept of the minimum viable product by simply asking themselves a simple question. What's the bare minimum that the client needs and wants? To give you an example of what this could look like, well, back then when people wanted to use a service like Gmail or Outlook or Yahoo, well, all they wanted to do was to send emails, nothing else. So that's all that the business needed to provide the customer. It simply needed to allow the customer to send emails, and all the other functions and features, they would just be completely irrelevant. The customer just wouldn't care. Lesson number 5. Inflation benefits asset owners, not liability owners. Let's say that you own a house that is worth $100,000. With an inflation of 10%, your house would end up being worth $110,000. However, if you don't own a house, and let's say that you were about to buy a house for $100,000, well, now to buy that same house, you're gonna have to spend $110,000. This means that the more assets you own, the wealthier you become thanks to inflation. And the opposite is also true. If you don't own many assets or no assets at all, you just become poorer and poorer. Now, unlike some people claim, I don't think that investing in real estate or having a few rental units or investing $200 a month for 50 years straight in the stock market are good strategies to build wealth. And yes, of course, doing these things is going to increase your net worth and your income, of course. But the truth is that with the arrival of social media, nowadays there is a much better way to build wealth, gigantic wealth, and especially faster than ever. Which brings me to lesson number 6. If you want to become wealthy, building a business is your best option. The thing that you've got to realize is that billionaires are billionaires not because they have a dozen rental units, but rather because they have a company that is valued at a few $1 billion. So anytime they decide to sell their company, they're good for life, and they can even provide for future generations. Now, not every business is equal. Opening up a restaurant is a business, but I would definitely not recommend it for most people. The best way to start a business nowadays is to start an online service-based business. And the reason why is because if you decided to sell physical products, like for instance you opened up a clothing e-commerce store, you would need to worry about inventory, manufacturing, shipping, returns, whereas with a service-based business, you have none of that hassle. So you can just focus on getting more customers, making sure that your customers are happy, and growing your business, most importantly. With a service-based business, this also means that your costs are very low and your margins very high. And then you can run your business from anywhere in the world, literally, as long as you have a steady internet connection and a laptop. If that isn't the definition of freedom, then I don't know what else is. Now, if you want to discover the best online business to start for beginners, you can click the link in the description below. I have recorded a free video in which I analyze every popular business model to figure out which one is the best to start for beginners. And I will also share with you the simple 3-step process that we use to help people to obtain financial independence. The big pro with online businesses compared to brick and mortar businesses is that they can scale easily and quickly compared to an actual physical business. And the reason why is because with an online business, you can handle a lot more customers for a fraction of the price. To give you an example, if you max out a restaurant, there isn't much that you can do to welcome new customers, to welcome additional customers, aside from opening different restaurants in new locations. Now, on the other hand, with an online business, you can either leverage contractors, automations, or systems to be able to handle more customers and therefore grow your revenue. And you can also reach anyone from anywhere in the world. You're also not impacted by crises around the world like the recent lockdowns. And if anything, during the recent lockdowns, business owners who had an online-based business, they usually saw their sales skyrocket because everybody was stuck at home. So naturally, using social media, using their computers, their tablets, their phones. Lesson number 7. Give the market what it wants and you will make a fortune. The lesson that you must understand as soon as you can in your entrepreneurial journey is that you cannot force a product or a service down the market's throat. I can guarantee that every single entrepreneur who tried to force a product or a service down the market's throat just ended up sad, frustrated, angry, and they quit because it simply doesn't work. Now, when it comes to dating, pretty much everybody understands that you cannot force somebody to love you. You can try to make them love you as hard as you want, but if they don't have any feelings for you, what can you really do to change that? Not much. The same is true in business. If people are not interested in what you have to offer, you will not succeed. It's that simple. Now, the opposite is true because you could have a great product or a great service, but if nobody knows about you or about your company, then it doesn't matter how good your product or service is, you won't make a single sale. Which brings me to lesson 8. Attention is the new currency. The truth is that in business, there is one element that matters even more than the quality of your products or services, and that element is brand awareness. If only 10 people in the world are aware of your product or service, then chances are you won't make much money at all, if any money at all. However, if 1 billion people know about your company, about your services, then most likely you will make a lot of money. First, you have to understand that you can either use paid traffic or free traffic or a combination of the two. Each has its pros and its cons. And with social media nowadays, it's actually pretty easy to acquire free customers, free traffic. And how do you do this? By creating valuable content. Understand that the business simply provides value to its customers, to its market. So if you can convince people that what you have to offer is valuable, and how do you do this? Again, by providing them with lots of free value. More people will be willing to pay you to get access to your premium products and services. To give you an example of how valuable attention is for a business, the YouTuber MrBeast opened up a fast food joint called MrBeast Burgers, and they generated over $150 million to this date. And you can expect that this number is going to be on the rise. This shows you the power of attention and also of having a personal brand. Because believe me, it would have been a completely different story if he just started out from nothing, nobody knew him, and he tried to start a popular fast food joint. It would have been insanely difficult. Lesson number 9. In order to maximize revenue and profits, you need to find a way to maximize the lifetime value of your customers. Now, what's lifetime value? Customer lifetime value means the total amount of money that the customer is going to spend on your products or services during the entire relationship that they have with your brand. And to give you an example, let's say that you were hired by Ferrari to become a sales rep, and they told you, okay, this month we want you to sell 10 brand new Ferraris. How would you reach that target? Who would be the best person to sell a Ferrari to? People who already own Ferrari cars. Why? Because they already know, like, and trust the brand, and they're already invested since they already own a Ferrari. It's a lot harder to convince a customer or a prospect to choose your brand over the brand that they are used to, that they're comfortable with. It's a lot easier to make an interesting offer to an existing customer. So I really hope that you received a lot of value from the 9 key lessons that I shared with you in this video. And if you apply these lessons in your business, you can be certain to experience significant growth. I'm sure of it. Now, if you're interested in starting your own online-based business or growing it, you can click the link in the description below. With that said, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, and feel free to check out the other videos on the channel if you're into business-related content. And with that said, I am waiting for you on the other side.